Hello, library patrons, and welcome to Miss Green's YA Book Talk. Today's title is Menaces to Society, Troubled Male Protagonists in Young Adult Literature. Because admit it, sometimes our male protagonists can be a little too perfect. So the books that I will introduce to you today features male protagonists who are viewed as menaces to those around them. So the first book that we'll talk about will be Fights by Joel Christian Gill. It is a memoir. The next book will be The Beautiful Struggle, another memoir by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And this is the book that is adapted for young adults. And then last but definitely not least, we will discuss Naruto, the manga phenomenon. First book is Fights, One Boy's Triumph Over Violence by Joel Christian Gill. And as you all can see from the cover, it's just plain as day. That this is what this book is about. It's about a young man's, the author, his problem with childhood violence as a kid. Don't let the fact that it's a graphic novel fool you. This book is raw, it's gritty, and it's real. This book is full of real life issues and problems. This stunning graphic novel details the author's painful and violent upbringing in Virginia in the late 1980s. Imagine growing up surrounded by poverty and feeling utterly powerless. As a kid, that's exactly how the author Joel Christian Gill felt. His mother works hard to take care of him by herself, so she's never home. She's also going to nursing school, which means that he's on his own to get on the bus, get himself dressed, take care of himself, and protect himself. His father died when he was a very young child, and it really didn't matter much because he didn't see his father often anyway, but it still left a hole in his heart. And one of his biggest fears is being left alone. Joel is constantly left to fend for himself. He is made fun of and beat up by his classmates and neighborhood kids constantly. And not just beat up by boys, he's even beat up by girls who are tough as nails. However, it isn't long before time passes and Joel himself is 6 feet tall. The tables turn for him, and he then becomes the aggressor or the menace in the neighborhood. Basically, he's a menace to his society for most of his upbringing, but no one notices that he is just living in a vicious cycle of poverty and violence and pain. Because he has been abused physically, sexually, and emotionally, it's a logical reaction that he does the same things to others. We as readers are invited to empathize with someone who was obviously not a good person, but we are invited to empathize because we know where this all stems from. So if somebody is truly a menace, can you really blame them? And what leads them down that path? Full of profanity, violence, loneliness, and heartbreak, you are going to be rooting for this troubled kid to turn his life around and come out on top. Our next book is The Beautiful Struggle, a memoir by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This book is a beautiful memoir, once again, true story, of a child. Our main character is the author, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he was seen by his father, Paul, as too sensitive and lacking focus. Paul Coates is a Vietnam vet who'd been a part of the Black Panthers and was dedicated to reading and publishing the history of African civilization. When it came to his sons, he was committed to raising proud Black men equipped to deal with the racist society during a turbulent period in the collapsing inner city of Baltimore where they lived. But our main character, he's a menace, but he's like a step below our first one, Joel Christian Gill. He's not really out in the streets fighting people and hurting people and causing all kinds of issues. He's just in his own little world. His dad wants him to grow up and focus on the world around him, learn about African American history, learn about his environment around him in Baltimore, keep his eyes open, learn about the streets, but don't be a part of the streets. You need to have your street smarts, but you have to focus on your academics. Ta-Nehisi doesn't want any of those things. He truly has his head in the clouds, and this is what makes him a menace. It bugs his parents to no end that he is only focused on comics and learning what he wants to learn. His father is convinced that he is going to send his children to Howard University, a famous HBCU. But his sons, especially his older sons, Ta-Nehisi and Ta-Nehisi's older brother, Big Bill, they have different plans. Now, Big Bill, he is a true menace to society, but he's not the main character. Big Bill does get into gun violence, gang violence. He blows school off. Ta-Nehisi is different. He's just oblivious to what's going on around him. It frustrates his teachers. His father makes sure that he's enrolled in academic magnet schools where he can get the best education, the best teachers. And every time as he moves from school to school and program to program, he messes it up. He may mess it up by running his mouth too much, mushing a teacher in the face, or just failing every one of his classes. But his father is relentless in saving the lives of Ta-Nehisi and his older brother, Big Bill. Will they come out on top? Will they make it to Howard University, which is Mecca, according to Dad? Or will they end up as another statistic in prison or on the streets? One of the reasons that Ta-Nehisi gives for his behavior is his chaotic mind. And I want to read this excerpt from you all as he talks about being in school and not being able to handle it. He says, "But I was a chaotic mind. When obsessed, I wanted only what I wanted and could give no attention to other matters. Urges would whisk through me every 15 minutes, each one discarding the former. I could not focus. At school, I became a problem, and by the end of my first semester, I was failing 3 classes. I considered myself capable of student awards and honor, and sometimes I even longed for them, but I longed more to live in my own head, emerging only to laugh or watch the streets on my way home." So we see someone here who is really struggling to conform to what his parents would like, his teachers, and those around him. He really wants to focus on his art, his rapping skills, because during this time it's the beginning of the hip hop movement. And he really just wants to be left alone in his own dream world. Sometimes violence stems from that. So this is a great read for those of you who aren't ready for the intensity of Fights by Joel Christian Gill, but you still want a gritty and raw story of a coming of age story about a young man here in America. Which leads us to our third book, Naruto. It's a completely different genre, completely different type of character. We are dealing with manga and anime here. The story is by Masashi Kishimoto. And if you have not heard of Naruto, then you either must be of an older generation or you've been living under a rock, because this is one of the most popular manga stories in America that has come from Japan. Now, if you are not ready to go down a gritty, emotional path, as we did in Fights and as we did in The Beautiful Struggle, and maybe you don't want a dose of reality, then you should enter the ninja world of Naruto. You will still get a menace to society, but we have humor, we have heart, and we have much hope in the story of Naruto. So let's dig in. Naruto is a young ninja in training when the story begins. But he is an outcast in his community because a demon fox has been sealed inside of his body since birth. Now, this demon fox terrorized his village and killed many people before he was born. But as soon as he was born, Naruto's father was able to seal the demon fox inside of Naruto's body as a kid. The village was saved. You would think that he would be held as a hero, but he is not. Since he was the chosen vessel for this demon fox, the villagers ostracized Naruto and discouraged their children from befriending him. This leads Naruto to seek the attention of others in any way possible, which includes playing many silly pranks. His very first prank in the book that we see is painting over the ninja Mount Rushmore. He paints over it with silly markings and drawings and colors, and that's just something that you don't do. The villagers and his academic guides at the Ninja Academy, they have no hope in him. They see him as a troublemaker, and some believe that eventually that fox, the demon fox, is going to take over and he will become the fox. So the villagers keep their children away from Naruto. So even though he goes to school with children, he's surrounded by people, he is incredibly lonely. So what does he do? He gets into trouble because any attention is better than no attention. And so I won't tell all of the pranks that he does, but a lot of times he uses his super ninja skills just for pranks and laughs that will get him in trouble, his ninja classmates in trouble, and it stops him from being able to graduate from the Ninja Academy on multiple occasions. Eventually, Naruto does declare his own philosophy and his own ninja way. He calls it his Nindo: never run away and never go back on his way. This sets the stage for Naruto to begin to grow and seek out and defend his teammates at all costs instead of putting them in jeopardy. While he is a talented ninja, his most valuable asset is his pure heart and his ability to influence others with his words. So he does start going along that path of being helpful instead of being hurtful. But his limits will be pushed as more and more pressure is put on him and his teammates to keep the village safe. This is a book filled with fast paced ninja action, comedy, and definitely heart touching moments. Will Naruto become the beast, the demon fox that the villagers think that he is? Or will Naruto defy his fate and achieve his dream of becoming one of the strongest and most powerful ninjas in his village? You'll have to find out and read it for yourself to see what happens to Naruto. So, in conclusion, we're talking about menace to society's male protagonists in YA literature who may or may not overcome their circumstances. And so, if you're interested, we have Fights, a beautiful graphic novel about inner city life and the young kids' triumph over childhood violence. We have The Beautiful Struggle by Ta-Nehisi Coates, about a young man and his brother who are constantly pushed to greatness by their father, but they fight it every step of the way. And then we have Naruto, a lighthearted ninja fantasy story straight from Japan with a boy who has been ostracized and pushed to his limits to become a troublemaker and a prankster and a menace to society. Will they come out on top? And how do they come out on top? That is for you all to decide if you want to dive into these books that I have discussed. One honorable mention, of course, is the OG Menace to Society, Pony Boy and the Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. He is one of the most well-known menaces to society. He and his boys, as they roam the streets of his hometown, wanting to fight for turf. So check out The Outsiders as well if you're looking for more bad boys. Thank you for this book talk, and I hope that you have enjoyed it.